Good morning. I'm Valerie Castro in for Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks very much for being with us on this Monday. We're going to get started this morning with new details surrounding the death of 3 hostages held in Gaza.
Israel says it's now investigating how the hostages were killed by defense forces. One of the hostages, 26-year-old Alon Lulu Shumrez, was buried over the weekend, prompting a new round of protests against the Israeli government. The families of the 3 hostages killed are also demanding Prime Minister Netanyahu resume negotiations with Hamas to release the remaining hostages in Gaza. This comes as the humanitarian crisis continues to worsen there. According to Gaza health officials, nearly 70% of people killed in the war are women and children. We have NBC News military analyst Colonel Jack Jacobs standing by to give insight into what happens next in this war. But first, NBC News correspondent Hala Garani joins us from Tel Aviv with the latest on the ground.
Hala, good morning. Thanks very much for being here. So let's start with the killing of those 3 hostages by the Israeli Defense Forces. What do we know at this point about what occurred?
Well, over the last few days, there's been widespread consternation in this country as details of how these 3 men died have been confirmed by the Israeli military. They came out with their hands up in Shajia. This is in the northern part of the Gaza Strip. You're seeing pictures there of the 3 men, including the man who you mentioned there, Alon Simritz, who was buried over the weekend. They were waving a white flag. They were shirtless. 2 of them were killed immediately. One of them managed to escape. There were cries for help heard in Hebrew, which should have been a signal to the Israeli military on the ground that these could be hostages. Despite that, there was a burst of fire, according to an IDF official who was briefing reporters, and the 3rd individual was killed. And there was a building nearby that was located on which inscriptions were for help, I should say, were found. So there were several really there clues that should have been taken seriously by the troops on the ground. The IDF says that this was a violation of the rules of engagement, and there have been reiterations now on the ground by some of the officials inside of the Gaza Strip to their troops, saying that no one waving a flag, certainly no one waving a flag who is shirtless, should be shot at, should be targeted, and that includes any Palestinian coming out in surrender. Savannah and Valerie, back to you. But yes, you can imagine a lot of anger there among ordinary Israelis at the news here that's been confirmed by the military and the government of this accidental killing.
Hala, given that anger, what kind of pressure are Israeli officials facing to resume hostage negotiations in light of these deaths? Is Prime Minister Netanyahu willing to return to the table, and how is Hamas responding?
Immense pressure on this prime minister. He is very unpopular in this country. More than 80%, according to a poll from a few weeks ago, want him to step down. Though support for the war, it has to be reiterated, is still very high. I spoke to a source close to the negotiations. They are staying quite mum, but they're saying we're closer to an outcome than just a few days ago, which is not saying much because there had been really almost a complete breakdown of talks. But we are hearing reports that perhaps there's renewed momentum for talks. And we know, of course, that the U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is on a visit. We expect him to address reporters a little bit later with the Prime Minister. So we'll bring you the latest on that as well.
Also, Hala, meanwhile, the United Nations is continually warning about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, saying it is reaching a breaking point. Hospitals are now under siege as thousands look for medical treatment for injuries sustained during bombings. Also, we know disease is spreading. What are you hearing from the doctors working inside these hospitals? What is it like just on the ground there and to try to be helping other people?
Well, the hospital system in the north has all but collapsed, and Palestinians on the ground are telling us that some hospitals have been surrounded and raided. They're pretty much not operational. In the south, there is a lot of pressure on the medical team, some of whom have relocated from the north to the south to try to treat people with injuries. We spoke, the NBC News crew on the ground spoke to one doctor in Rafah, and this is how she described her job of trying to tend to those with wounds and injuries on a daily basis. Listen.
The situation cannot even be described. Every second in this war is difficult. It's very difficult and heavy on my heart. But when I have to deal with a child or a baby without their family, without their father and mother, I feel heavy-hearted and restricted.
Well, this, as we're hearing from the Ministry of Health, run by Hamas, that almost 19,000 Palestinians have died since October 7th. Back to you.
All right, Hala, thank you very much for your reporting.
Let's bring in Colonel Jack Jacobs for more. Colonel, good morning. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan warned a new phase is necessary in the war between Israel and Hamas. Here is some of what he had to say.
There will be a transition to another phase of this war, one that is focused in more precise ways on targeting the leadership and on intelligence-driven operations that continues to deal with the ongoing threat that Hamas poses.
Colonel, what do you make of those comments?
Well, from the very beginning, it's been extremely difficult for the Israeli Defense Force to target the leadership because it was in difficult locations. The intelligence wasn't good from the very beginning. And quite frankly, it's not going to get a whole lot better unless there's a painstaking, labor-intensive search on the ground, which takes a lot of time. This works to the tremendous disadvantage of the Israeli Defense Forces and Netanyahu's objective of getting the war over as quickly as possible. So they're mutually exclusive, but that's exactly what's going to happen if the IDF if it intends to eliminate the leadership of Hamas. And wants to minimize civilian casualties. It's going to have to take a lot more time. And politically, inside Israel as well as outside Israel, Netanyahu does not have a lot of time, Valerie.
And meanwhile, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin traveled to the region over the weekend. He was there to reiterate the need to end ground hostilities immediately. What role can the U.S. play here to get Israel and Hamas back at that negotiation table?
Well, Austin's there to deliver a very pointed message, and it's probably going to be something like this. While the administration itself is strongly in favor of Israel's continuing the attacks to eliminate Hamas, it's imperative that civilian casualties be reduced to as low as it possibly can be. That means that the use of explosive devices, whether they're dumb or smart bombs, has to be reduced. And in the end, the administration may not be able to control the funding for Israel's offensive. That is, though the administration itself, the White House, Austin may be strongly in favor of Israel's doing as much as it can to eliminate Hamas, the Congress, in the end, holds the purse strings.
And Colonel, Prime Minister Netanyahu said yesterday he expects this war to last for months. How do you see it playing out in that time?
Well, you raise a significant issue. In the end, what happens in the end? Somebody has to administer Gaza. It's not going to be Israel. It doesn't want to do that, and nobody else wants Israel to do that. The Palestinian Authority is, the United States is strongly in favor of Palestinian Authority managing Gaza, but Israel says no. There's going to have to be some sort of compromise that's going to include the participation of Arab countries in the region. Without that, this war will go on a long, long time, and nobody's in favor of that.
All right. Colonel Jack Jacobs, thank you for your time.
Well, this morning on Capitol Hill, top Senate negotiators are back at the bargaining table trying to reach an agreement on immigration laws. Over the weekend, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas joined lawmakers to iron out sticking points. Now, remember, though, this has implications greater than the southern border. Republicans say an immigration deal is essential to securing their votes to pass aid for Ukraine and Israel. NBC News congressional correspondent Julie Sirkin joins us now on this. Hey, Julie, good morning. So where do negotiations stand at this point? What are some of these major sticking points?
Hey, Savannah, good morning. Yeah, well, I was outside of the room all weekend where negotiators, the senators, James Langford, Kirsten Sinema, and Chris Murphy sat in a room with Secretary Mayorkas trying to come to some kind of agreement that they could move forward on a deal to secure our southern border, but also send aid overseas to Ukraine and to Israel. But there are still significant gaps. I'm told by sources in the room that three main buckets the two sides still have major differences on. And you see them on your screen. The first one, tightening parole authority. That means limiting who the Biden administration can admit into the country on temporarily humanitarian basis. Also expanded detention of asylum seekers. This is something Progressives in particular are strongly pushing back on, saying it's inhumane and cruel, and expedited deportation of migrants, expanding that measure beyond the border and into other American cities like New York City and Chicago, which has seen a lot of migrants over the last few months, especially with Republican governors sending migrants up. But bottom line here, still a lot of work to be done, and they are set to meet again later today to try and hammer out some kind of framework their colleagues could potentially vote on.
Is the Biden administration willing to make significant concessions here when it comes to the border in order to get the deal done, given that it's tied to that other aid funding for Ukraine and Israel?
Savannah, they are willing to make significant concessions. They are going in the direction of Republicans, especially because they see what they're dealing with in the House. Conservatives who lead that chamber, really a lot of them not in favor of even sending aid to Ukraine, but they do want to see the most conservative, the most Trump-like border policies. Of course, Democrats are not willing to go that far, but they are willing to go far enough, Savannah, that I am told that Hispanic lawmakers in a meeting with White House officials, including Secretary Mayorkas and Biden's chief of staff, they were very frustrated in that meeting on Saturday because they do find these proposals to be cruel, to be untenable. They think they're being iced out of conversations, and that Republicans are getting far too much of what they want here. But still, the Biden administration seems poised to want to get something done because they do recognize this is not only a problem at the border for the president, for Americans, but it is a political one too.
Julie, I know the Senate hopes to vote this week. Even if they have the votes to push it through, it still has to go through the House. I mean, what kind of time frame are we looking at here for this to even make it to President Biden's desk?
Well, if the Senate did take it up this week, which really is a big if, that means the House is actually not going to come back until mid-January, and that's when they would take this proposal up. But realistically, Savannah, and just to be straight up with our viewers, I really just can't see that happening. It's too ambitious. Yesterday, the minority leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, sent a note to colleagues telling them, listen, progress has been made, but we are not going to rush. We are not going to jam you to vote on something when there is still no legislative text. And again, those significant policy gaps still remain. So I can't see the Senate taking this up this week. We'll see if Leader Schumer still plans to put a bill on the floor without text to fund Ukraine and Israel, and of course to secure our southern border. But again, Republicans are really pushing for that vote to happen in January, and that sets up quite a busy timetable with also those two spending bills up at the end of January and beginning of February as well.
All right, Julie Sirkin, thank you so much.
Former President Trump is feeling the heat this morning following some anti-immigration remarks he made over the weekend. The Biden campaign accusing Trump of echoing remarks made by Adolf Hitler. NBC News correspondent Von Hilliard has more.
Former President Donald Trump rallying his supporters in the early voting state of Nevada. It comes a day after he made these controversial comments about immigrants at a rally in Durham, New Hampshire.
They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done.
The Biden campaign accusing Trump of parroting Adolf Hitler, as similar wording was used in his writings. And at least one of Trump's GOP rivals blasted him for the remark.
He's disgusting. And what he's doing is dog whistling to Americans who feel absolutely under stress and strain from the economy.
Trump is promising the largest deportation program in the nation's history if reelected in 2024, and requiring immigrants pass a strong ideological screening. Trump also touted his relationship with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, calling him, quote, very nice, and referencing Russian President Vladimir Putin.
But even Vladimir Putin, has anybody ever heard of Vladimir Putin? Of Russia, says that Biden's, and this is a quote, politically motivated persecution of his political rival is very good for Russia because it shows the rottenness of the American political system.
In new polling from CBS News out of New Hampshire, Nikki Haley climbing to a strong second position, following the endorsement of the state's governor. But this is Trump this weekend, attracting the New England masses.
Donald Trump loves our country. He loves us.
We need a new birth of freedom.
A stark contrast to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis as he struggles to gain traction in the state. Von Hilliard, NBC News.
And there's people coming, and
We'll stay in on politics. NBC News has just launched a new series called The Deciders. We're taking a closer look at 7 counties that could have a major impact on the 2024 election.
This morning, we're focusing on Miami-Dade County in Florida, which is home to a large Hispanic and Latino population. NBC News correspondent Marissa Parra joins us now from Miami. Marissa, good morning. What is it about Miami-Dade's demographics that make it such an important and unique county to watch?
Hey guys, good morning. Well, where to start? I mean, Florida has the largest Latino electorate of all of the battleground states, and Miami-Dade County, where I am right now, also has the most registered Hispanic voters. I want to show you the breakdown of voters here in Miami-Dade County. These are the residents of Miami-Dade. You can see nearly 70% of them identify as Hispanic or Latino, and half of them are Cuban or identify as Cuban. And 66% report speaking Spanish at home primarily. I also want to point out that this is also home to the largest populations of, and I'm going to rattle off a lot of names here, Venezuelans, Nicaraguans, Argentinians, Chileans, Colombians, Peruvians, Uruguayans. So when we talk about the diversity here, yes, nearly 70% of the people here in Miami-Dade County are Latino or Hispanic, but within that, there's a lot of diversity, and all of those countries, all of those cultures is going to really inform how they vote, and is going to specifically inform how campaigns try to reach those populations here, guys.
What can we learn from the country's voting trends in previous elections? How are they changing over time? What are you learning there in Miami?
Yeah, and I want to show you the specific numbers that illustrate what I'm about to say here, which is that Republicans over the years consistently since 2012 have made significant wins and gains. So look at the difference there. I think most significant when you look at the difference in support for President Trump, for former President Trump, that leapt from 34% to 46% between 2016 and 2020. So it was during his presidency, during those first 4 years, that he really made a significant difference here. And we can talk about the strategy in a little bit here, but Republicans have not seen wins or gains in Miami-Dade County like this since 2002, guys. So this was a significant wake-up call to Democrats who had previously seen Miami-Dade County as something that was a surefire win for them previously.
So given those trends and looking ahead to next year's election, what can we expect strategy-wise from both Republicans and Democrats in that county, and how much of a priority is it expected to be for both of those parties?
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly illustrate and describe to you what we've seen in previous years. I mean, Miami-Dade County has always been an important stop, an important campaign stop for former presidents, for people on the campaign trail. I mean, we had the former President Bill Clinton, former President George W. Bush, and then, of course, most recently, we had former President Trump. He has made a point to make his presence and visibility known here in Miami-Dade County. I mean, look at, this is footage from Versailles Restaurant. This is the day before his Miami court appearance. And then we also had Chris Christie on the campaign trail. This is Versailles. This is a landmark in Miami. This is a popular Cuban restaurant. But you also have appearances by Republicans, especially former President Trump, on radio, Spanish language radio, billboards. This is something that both the Democrats and Republicans are going to have to do, especially when we have 66% of the population here reporting speaking Spanish, especially targeting those Spanish language predominant neighborhoods. And we do know that this is something that Democrats are talking about ramping up, because visibility is going to be key here, guys. And as we've seen in previous elections before, both midterms and presidential elections, Miami-Dade is an important and key county when it comes to winning the battleground state of Florida. Back to you guys.
Absolutely. A lot to watch where you are. Very interesting. Marissa Parra, thank you so much.
A powerful storm system is bringing strong winds, heavy rain, and flooding to the East Coast today.
Michelle Grossman is here in the studio to tell us more. Hey, Michelle, good morning.
Hey there, guys. Good morning. And it is a big storm. It was a miserable weekend for many along the East Coast. And it's a miserable Monday morning in the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast, into portions of New England. We have very heavy rain falling. It's a slow commute, ponding on the roadways. The winds are really starting to pick up. We could see winds gusting up to 70 miles per hour in some spots. This is what it looks like on radar. You can see those brighter colors. That's where the heaviest this rain is falling. So there is a lot of it. Be careful as you head out this morning. But we're looking at the back end of this storm. So you can see down the mid-Atlantic, that is the back edge. So we're going to start to clear as we go throughout the later part of the morning in the mid-Atlantic. Also the Northeast, it's going to linger longer in portions of New England. And we're going to see the potential for some flooding rains there. We're going to see the winds continuing, so more power outages. We have a lot of power outages right now in the state of New York, also throughout New England as well. Then on the back edge of the system, we're pulling in really cold air. So it's mild today in portions of the Northeast, New England. Big difference tomorrow. We're going to drop about 20 degrees in some spots, but cold enough along the Great Lakes into the Appalachians where we're looking at lake effect snow. And we could see up to a foot of snow in some spots. Flood alerts. We're looking at 59 million people under flood alerts. We have lots of flash flood warnings. That is in the red. That means flooding is happening right now, or it's imminent. Where you see the green, that is a flood watch. So portions of the Northeast into New England, we're looking at really, really wet conditions. This is not a tropical storm, but it really is acting like one with lots of water and lots of wind. In terms of rainfall totals, we're not looking a whole lot in the mid-Atlantic. Most of the Northeast looking pretty good as we go forward in terms of additional rainfall. But we're looking a lot through New England. Even up to 3-4 inches of rain is still expected. And we're looking at really soggy grounds. The winds will be blowing, so we're going to see trees coming down. Winter alerts, 13 million people impacted. We have winter weather advisories. That is in the white. Winter storm watches, winter storm warnings. That's in that pinker color. And we could see up to a foot of snow in some spots. Where you see those purples and pinks, that's the highest amount. So downwind in the Great Lakes, also along the Appalachians, we're looking at some really heavy snowfall. Not just today, but into tomorrow. We'll start to see it wrap up tomorrow. And then the wind alerts, 46 million people impacted from portions of the mid-Atlantic, the Carolinas, into parts of New England. We have high wind warnings, 50, 60, 70-mile-per-hour winds. Remember, that's close to hurricane force winds with really soggy grounds. That's not a good combination. So winds gusting as we go throughout the rest of this morning. We're going to see 40s, 50s, even 65 miles per hour in Nantucket. Could see a little higher there as well. Up through New England, we're looking at 59 miles in Portland, or at least that's what we're expecting as we go throughout the next couple of hours. This is the setup here. We're going to see gradual clearing throughout the Northeast. We're looking at scattered snow showers, but could see a lot of snow on the back end of this as that cold air kind of continues to wrap in. And then tomorrow staying breezy, but we dry out. So that's good news. We're going to see those lingering snow throughout the Great Lakes. We're also really wet along the west as well. This is not just today, tomorrow, but also Wednesday. We have a series of fronts that will continue to move on shore. The first one today, so from the Pacific Northwest all the way down through portions of California, really most of the west coast will be wet today with higher elevation snow, and we're looking at that lower elevation rain. And we could see quite a bit of rain as we head throughout the next few days. The next storm will be on deck, and we're looking at a cold front moving through tomorrow, and again, it will stay in place on Wednesday. So, guys, we're looking locally up to 5 inches, especially in portions of northern California, so Eureka, Chico, down to San Francisco. So we are wet on both coasts, but really looking nice in the middle of the country. Back to you.
Ooh, and not nice over here. All right, Michelle, thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.